now.
Hi, everybody. Welcome back. This is the third episode of Duality. I have been on leave this month and I got back on Wednesday and it's Friday, so we're jumping straight back into it. And today, as usual, with me is Roger Hanson Live, otherwise known as Infamous. So, welcome, Roger. Thank you for being with us again.
Thanks for having me.
And And Roger, today you say that you have got some really interesting things that you're going to share with us about the Beatitudes, St. Francis of Assisi, and some of the other prayers around that, which is going to continue on from what we've been talking about before, about masculinity and femininity.
Yep.
So this is like a real good opportunity for me to really grill you and pick your brains on how you think about this. So I was wondering how you would like to start. Would you like to start by introducing the Beatitudes?
Well, I can, but one thing I wanted to say too, that like this, when you look at this, you can look at it with like the feminine aspect and the masculine aspect, but you also have to look at it more on the duality side of things. You know what I mean? Because that's really where it fits out. But you can see the feminine and the masculine in it when you read them. Mostly the feminine aspects, because it has to do with the virtues. And when we were talking about Dharma before, we were talking about virtues being a part of the feminine aspects. You know, so that's something that I did want to point out. But yeah, you want me to go through the Beatitudes?
Should I read them for you?
Well, yeah, if you want
and
to.
then you can. I'll read them, and then you can give us the details, right? So I'll just give us an overview just to get going.
Okay. No,
So,
actually, if you want, I can kind of explain what they are.
okay. Yeah.
So,
All right.
okay, so the Beatitudes are sayings from Jesus, and in particularly, there are 12 blessings that are recounted by Jesus on the Sermon of the Mount in the Gospel of Matthew. Then there's 4 in the Sermon of the Plain in the Gospel of Luke. And after the Beatitudes, it's followed by 4 woes, which mirror the blessings. In the Gospel of Luke. So that's basically what you're reading, what you're about to read. So,
right. Okay. So I should start with the ones which are known as the Sermon on the Mount.
Right.
Well, they're sort of the introduction to the Sermon on the Mount.
Right.
And those are in Matthew, right?
Right.
So he starts off by saying, "Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are those who mourn, for they will be comforted. Blessed are the meek, for they will inherit the earth. Blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness, for they will be satisfied. Blessed are the merciful, for they will be shown mercy. Blessed are the pure in heart, for they will see God. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they will be called the sons of God. Blessed are those who are persecuted because of righteousness, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are you when people insult you, persecute you, and falsely say all kinds of evil against you because of me. Rejoice and be glad, because great is your reward in heaven. For in the same way that they persecuted the prophets, who were before you." So really strange and deep sayings there. And then Luke has a slightly different version. Luke 6, he says, looking at his disciples, he said, "Blessed are you who are poor, for yours is the kingdom of God. Blessed are you who hunger now, for you will be satisfied. Blessed are you who weep now, for you will laugh. Blessed are you when people hate you, when they exclude you and insult you and reject your name as evil because of the Son of Man. But woe to you who are rich, for you have already received your comfort. Woe to you who are well fed now, for you will go hungry. Woe to you who laugh now, for you will mourn and weep. Woe to you when everybody speaks well of you, for that is how their ancestors treated the false prophets."
All right.
So interesting. So what's your take on that?
Okay, so when you go through here and you look at them, you have to look at the opposites. Okay, so blessed are those who mourn, and the opposite of mourn is is being comforted. Okay, then it comes here and it talks about, well, the meek, it says they'll inherit the earth. Okay, so you have the meek, and then you have people who freaking are high rulers and high kings. Okay, so you have the opposites there. They're saying that the poor will inherit the earth. They'll be the ones who rule, you know. And then you have what is it? Blessed are the merciful, for they will be shown mercy. Now, see, with that one, that is a big deal for me, because like whenever I was sobering up, I had to learn that right there about, in order to forgive, you have to ask for forgiveness. You see, and that's what started me on this whole path, and I learned about duality, and you know, when I always talk to you about two opposites can't occupy the same space, this is what it's all about right here. And a lot of people think that this just has to do with like Catholic beliefs and stuff like that, but it's not. These are spiritual principles which you can find in every religion. It doesn't matter if you're Christian, it doesn't matter if you're Buddhist or Hindu, Muslim, they all have these principles. All right, all you have to do is take time to search them out and look for them, you know. And this is very, very powerful when it comes to spiritual principles. I mean, this is the golden nugget that I was talking to you about, you know. And then what is it? Blessed are the pure of heart. Well, that's not really a duality. You will see God. Now, down here in Luke's writings is where you really get into it. He brings it out more when you start seeing the duality. You know, in my opinion, he does. He says, "Blessed are you who are poor, for yours is the kingdom of God." And then, "Blessed are you who are hungry now. You will be satisfied." You know, it's the complete opposite. It goes from hunger to satisfied. And then, "Blessed are you who weep, you will laugh." You know, so you're going from weeping to laughing. And then down here, it talks about, well, I'm not going to get into the wolves, because those to me don't really have too much when it comes to duality, but what I've covered there is what it basically is. You know, it's, you have the duality in the writing where he's talking about this is one thing, here's the opposite. They're pointing it out. The opposite of weeping is to freaking be happy, you know what I mean, and to laugh, things of that nature. So That's basically what I was wanting to get into with this whole part right here. So, like with you though, when you read this and everything, what did you take out of it?
I find them very fascinating. I think, like you say, there is this the opposites. They do show how you replace one thing with the other thing. I think that was interesting with the woes is that, you know, when you've had sorrow, when you've had something like tragedy or trauma or whatever it is in your life, you can look forward to something nice coming, and that can lift your spirits. But when you've got something really good happening, and you know the woes will be happening later, you don't have that same sort of looking forward to thing. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's that somehow we grow during times of tragedy and heartbreak and stress and hardship. And so this blessing that comes to us it's counterintuitive. In the secular world, people resist unhappiness and misery. And yet here in these teachings, there's this strange doorway into a type of gratitude and peace almost, because you can look forward to some sort of growth coming out of your tragedy. And that's not something we know as children. That's something that we learn as adults and by listening to wise people. And so it's a part of faith, you know, that idea that something is coming, just hang in there. You know, so I do think that they're real teachings of hope.
Yeah. I get mixed up because of the latency in the video, so like when you're moving your lips on the video, I'm not expecting you to stop talking, you know what I mean? So it kind of throws me off.
Yes, so. It's tricky. Is that from Discord?
Yeah.
Is it?
I don't know, to be honest. Like I said before, it's been all of the VoIPs. They've been acting really strange. So
strange this year, yeah.
Now, when you went over with the woes and everything, that's kind of what I was getting into when I showed you my footnote or my talking points on Ecclesiastics. It's down at the bottom of the footnotes that I had there.
Yes.
But that's kind of what this is all about. Okay. For everything there's a season, you know what I mean, and every time and every purpose under heaven is what that's all about. You know what I mean? There's a time and a place for everything. You know, this too will pass is a real popular term in recovery, and they say this too will pass when you're having bad times trying to sober up and stuff, right? But whenever you're having a good time and life is going good, this too will pass, you know what I mean? So you have to remind yourself, not only in the good times, but in the bad times, this too will pass. So, and that's the one part right there that really sticks out to me on the woes. So I'm glad you brought it up. And I mean, if you want, we can cover that. I don't think it's going to take too long, is what I was thinking of, to get through a lot of this. It's just basic writing and stuff, you know. So now that we've gotten started, I think it's going pretty good at a good time frame. So
yeah, Roger, what you were talking about being merciful and forgiveness. Yeah. And I know that in the 12 steps, forgiveness is one of the very early steps after recognizing your powerlessness and after entrusting yourself to God. Forgiveness is one of the early things that you do, isn't it?
No, actually, it's like the 9th step. It's.
Oh, really?
Yeah, like there's a whole process. Right here, what we're talking about right now would be recognizing what your wrongs are. before you go and ask for forgiveness. So whenever you go and ask for or actually it's not really asking for forgiveness, it's amends. So I want to clarify that. Like when you make an amends and you ask somebody for forgiveness, those are two different things. Like making an amends is an action. So when you go to approach somebody, you have to make amends to them, okay? And that means you tell them where you played a part in the situation, and you say that you'll do whatever it takes to make amends to that person. So when you do that, if they have something that they want you to do for them, as long as it doesn't hurt you or other people around you, or them even, you need to do it. You know what I mean? So that's an amends, and
Right.
that's one of the things that they forgiveness is important. It is a part of the process when it comes to it, but the amends is a total different area altogether. So but yeah, basically that part is like up in the ninth step of it. So
But you say that that was where you learned to be merciful, is
yeah,
it?
asking
Right.
people that I'd harmed and who had harmed me for forgiveness was probably the most humbling experience that I've ever had, because first of all, I had to learn where I played a part in the situation. You know what I mean?
Okay.
And when I went to that person with with the part I played in it, they were more willing to forgive me for what I'd done to them on my side, of the street. And I didn't look at what part they played. I looked at what part I played. And when I did that, freaking, all I can say is it's really it's an amazing experience. You know what I mean? It just does something to you. It's like a weight's been lifted off of you. So
Right. Right. So is that what is meant by blessed is? That weight lifting off you, is that the blessing?
to me, it was. I mean, to be honest with you, and I know a lot of people when they get into spiritual things, they're more. The only way I know how to say it with the way other people do the whole spiritual thing is they make it more mystical. You know what I mean? And I'm not really a mystical kind of guy. Never really was. But I can tell you that like when I went and I did make my amends, it was a spiritual experience. Really, it was because of the weight that was lifted from me. I could feel like a burden that was gone. You know what I mean? Because I went to people who were my enemies and I asked them for forgiveness, and they were happy to give it to me. It
Wow.
it's just it really is an amazing experience.
Mm. Mm. So one of the things that I read, let me just look it up here. Hold up. It says, "Blessed are the peacemakers, for they will be called sons of God."
Yeah.
That really struck me when I read it this morning when you sent it through. They will be called sons of God. Because sons of God, that's sort of about your character, isn't it? It's not like lineage or something here, because there's no lineage in this.
Yeah,
It's
I know.
that by being a peacemaker, you somehow
Well, you become
develop the character of God.
what it is, and a lot of people in today's world has a hard time with this. Christians, I should say, like they don't like people referring to themselves as a son of God, and the reason for it is it's become commonplace for everybody to call Jesus the Son of God, when in reality the writings themselves say that blessed are the peacemakers, for they will be called the sons of God. So it was commonplace in those days for people to be called sons of God. You know what I mean? In today's world, they don't do that. They don't say that, and they usually scorn you whenever you do say that. But that stuck out to me too. It really did. It's just I didn't bring it up. I'm glad you did though.
So do you consider yourself, after having the spiritual experience that you've described just now, do you consider yourself to be a son of God now?
I don't take religious stance on stuff at all whatsoever. I don't follow any form of religion. I believe in spiritual principles, but I don't follow the Buddhist religion or the Christian religion. I'm not a Muslim. I'm not a freaking Hindu. I don't follow any kind of religious order. So
isn't that what God wants from us? Isn't that, I mean, if you go searching through all these great sermons in all these different religions that you've just mentioned, there's this sort of similar voice that keeps on coming through. Is that, for me, I think that's God. That's some thing, I don't even know what the word is, divinity, nirvana, holiness, the universe. There's something that's a sort of a similar voice that comes through all these different religions. Do you see that? Do you perceive it to be like that?
I call it truth.
Truth.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
When you hear the truth, you can't deny it. And people can get mad about it. People can be happy when they hear it. People have different reactions to it, but you can't deny that it's not the truth. And it doesn't matter what the conversation is about. When you hear somebody tell you the truth about anything, you always know that it's the truth.
There's a thing, right?
So that's the thing that gets me when I think of stuff like that. I think of it's the truth, and there's truth in everything. If you with this right here, a lot of it, it taught me about discernment. So and people don't really understand, like when I'm listening to them, okay, I actually can hear a lot more than what they realize. Like, I actually know what it is they've learned, what they haven't learned about that topic if I've freaking studied it and I've listened to it and I've learned about it, you know? So for me, the best way of discerning information is to listen to people, you know what I mean, and the way they handle themselves and what they're talking about, because usually people who say they've done this or they've done that really haven't, and everybody just falls in line and they believe it and they don't listen to what these people are saying, you know what I mean? So first you have to learn how to discern what's true and what's false. And what we're getting into here is a tool for how I've actually learned how to listen to people and decide for myself, are they telling me the truth or are they deceiving me? You see, because there are people,
a very good skill,
you know, because there are people out there that do want to deceive you and they want to tell you things that aren't true, you know, make things up and things like that. And I don't want to be those people, you know what I mean? I don't want to be one of those people. So what I do is I learn how to discern the truth from the false, and this is how I do it, you know? I hope that was
so interesting.
Hope that was the answer you was looking for.
I was looking for the truth. The truth. So, blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness, for they will be satisfied. That sounds like what you've said. It sounds like there is your discernment there, because you are actually searching in what's being said for what's right, what's, true, what's pure in a way. And when you do search for it, you find it, so they will be satisfied. When you look, you do find.
All right.
I mean, sometimes you don't like what you find. Sometimes you find a negative thing, but you find it, don't you?
Yeah.
And it's this process of taking responsibility for looking for the blessings, for looking for the positive way.
All right. See, that's one thing that I have to work on is looking for the positive, and because for me, I've taken a different path on that attitude. Like, a lot of people say that like you have to overlook the bad and stare at the good, and the bad will just go away. You know what I mean? But I've learned that there's good and there's bad, and I have to recognize the bad just as much as I do the good. So in order for me to see things with balance, I have to understand that there's just as much bad in the world as what there is good. Okay.
Yes.
And it's really hard for people to understand that. And the best way I've learned to understand it is there's a saying that you can't see through the forest because of the trees, okay? Well, my best answer to that is you don't want to look through the forest. Why not stop and look at each tree and find out what's going on there, you know what I mean? And eventually you'll be able to freaking see through the forest and know what the trees are all about. You know, don't try to overlook the trees so that you can see on the other side, you know what I mean? And that's something that I've learned when it comes to my shortcomings. I had to learn how to recognize my shortcomings, my character defects, my sins, or whatever you want to call them. You know, there's different names for it, but I had to look at those and recognize those in myself. And that's actually how I was able to move forward. And my life started changing because of it. It wasn't the way I wanted it. I don't think life is ever the way anybody expected it or even wanted it, but you know, it did change. So
yes, it's very interesting. That's something that Otto says to me often, is that he doesn't use the word sin. You know, he comes from a Buddhist background, and a lot of his study has been in Theravada Buddhism. And he's also, like you were saying earlier, nuts and bolts. There's no sort of like fancy ritually religious stuff. It's just do these things. These things are skillful things to do. And this is the way, you know, to move forward is with skill. And he sometimes when I say to him, oh, I've done this thing wrong, or I did that, whatever. And he says, sometimes seeing your unskillfulness is a skill. It sounds like what you're saying is that you sometimes just have to be able to evaluate yourself like that from a distance in order to be able to step away from those, whatever shortcomings, weaknesses, whatever they are.
Well, it's for me, I have to, if I'm doing everything the way I'm supposed to be doing. I'm supposed to be keeping inventory of myself, and I'm supposed to be doing it on a daily basis. Now, it sounds complicated and overwhelming when you first hear that. Oh my gosh, I have to do that every day. Well, it is hard at first, all right. But the thing of it is the more you do it, the better you get at it. And I've had conversations with other people in gaming, in the gaming community, because I like to do video games and stuff too on the video stream. And the thing that they hate the most, because gamers are lazy as shit and they don't like to actually do stuff, you know. But the thing they hate is repetition. They hate it. They hate that word with a passion. And I tell them it's about getting a habit formed to where you're doing something on a regular basis, and the more you do it, the faster you'll get at it, and the better you'll get at it. And that is where, well, I know I've heard it in conversations. Everybody talks about dogma, okay, and being dogmatic and everything, and they really don't understand what they're talking about right there, okay? It's not really dogma. What it is these people are going through a procedure. It's a process, okay, that they're doing that's creating change within their life, okay. And duality, a lot of people like to clump that up with being dogmatic, and it's not, because what it does is it creates change within you, where you change from the negative to the positive, okay, where you know what the opposite of the negative is, and you focus on the positive. Where me, I'm having issues with it, I'm right dead in the center, you know what I mean? Where instead of trying to focus on the positive and just blank out the negative, I'm not doing that. I'm actually in between, and that's kind of what I was trying to get at before. You know what I mean? It's a kind of in between both. I'm not saying either is good or either is bad. I just know they're there. You know, so.
Okay, so let me try to understand you here. You're saying, I think, that both positivity and negativity play a role, and you need to somehow stand between them and be able to mediate them in your life. Did I get that right?
You need to recognize them, not control them. You need to recognize them, not control them. Don't try to control the good. Don't try to control the bad, because life's gonna happen, okay? And that's what it's all about. Life is going to happen. The best thing I can control is myself, you know. That's the only thing I have true control over. And when I say myself, I'm not even talking about the physical self. I'm saying, like, the way I react to situations, the way I feel, my emotions, things of that nature, my way of thinking. I can change those things. Okay, I can have a good day whenever I want it. All I have to do is choose to have a good day. I don't have to wait. I don't have to wait till tomorrow. I can start my day over right now. Just snap my fingers and say, you know what? I'm done. This day's over. I'm starting a new one, and from this point on, I'm having a good day. I can tell myself.
How do you do that, Roger?
Huh?
How do you do that? Is that just emotional strength? Have you always been able to do that, or is that a skill that you've learned?
I've had to learn it. I've literally had to learn it. There's another saying. Have you ever heard this before? Sometimes the best part of the day is when you go to bed.
It's for me, yeah.
Sometimes the best part of the day is when when you've gone to bed. And that's a powerful meaning, because there was plenty of days where I felt like I got my butt kicked, man. I was wore out. My freaking eyes were bloodshot. People had just driven me nuts. And the most comforting part of that day was when I put my head on the pillow. And I was like, oh, it's over. You know what I mean? That's like the best moment in the whole day. And nobody ever remembers that part of the day. Like, whenever you're laying your head down and you're like, oh, man, it's over. You know, it's just a great feeling. So.
Gosh. That's so interesting. I wish that I had that skill that you say of saying, I'm starting my day over. I don't have that. I find that if my day's going along and things start going wrong, it spirals for me. And to be able to do that thing that you're saying of stopping and adjusting my attitude, I don't know how to do that.
You stop and you say, that's it. It's over. I'm starting my day over. That's it. That's all you do.
Goodness. Well, I'm going to have to try that. That's quite an amazing skill. If you can get that right, if I could learn that, wow, that would save me a lot of heartache.
And this goes back to what I was saying about habit. You got to make it a habit to where you recognize you're having a bad day, you stop, and you say, that's it, it's over.
Right.
I'm starting my day over. And sometimes you have to start over like 3 or 4 times in the same day. You need to understand that too. Okay. So you don't start your day over sometimes like once and then you're good. You know what I mean? Sometimes it could be 4 or 5 times, 6 or 7 times. But you have to keep saying, I'm starting up my day over. And then if it doesn't help you by the end of the night and it's time to go to bed, you freaking say the best part of the day sometimes is when it's over, and you go,
It's over.
you know, and
Oh.
do the same thing the
So,
next day.
when you look at these, right? When you see this sermon, is it? These list of blessings. How do you? The blessings seem to come out of really miserable things. So I don't know. I'm just like, the best part of your day is when you lay your head down and it's over. You've done it. You've achieved that blessing. You've somehow earned your sleep. That's quite a spiritual way to go to sleep at the end of your day.
Mm-hmm. Well,
I like that.
Also, let's take a step back a little bit and talk about the feminine aspects of Dharma we talked about before. Okay. Now remember, I told you there's only 2 aspects that are feminine from Dharma, and that's virtue and purification.
Right.
Okay. So, what we're reading here is the virtues of Christianity. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So now we've gone from talking about the virtues in Dharma with Buddha and Hinduism to the virtues of Christianity.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Mm-hmm.
So now you're learning virtue and you're applying it into your life. You see what I mean? Everything we're discussing here has to do with your virtue, being virtuous.
Yes.
And you're gaining those blessings.
And yet I'm also getting from you, as I listen to you, I'm getting from you that you need this masculine attitude of the strength and determination and self-control in order to put these virtues into practice. So you need to use both these skills at the same time, almost.
Well,
in order to get the virtue, you have to do the hard yards, the hard work.
You have to do the prayers. You have to stop and change your attitude. You know, recognize your attitudes and stuff like that.
Right.
Now,
Yes.
the more masculine side of it, that's the action, that's the footwork. These would consist of like doing stuff that you don't want to do. You know what I mean? Because, like, being honest, when I was sobering up, it was okay for me whenever people told me that I needed to look at my character defects, and I noticed pride, and I noticed, well, first of all, it has to do with what I had to learn. I had to learn through the 7 deadly sins. Okay, that was one of the things, and I learned about my pride. I learned about all the other bad things I had, which freaking I could do without really much actions. I'd do the prayers. I'd freaking, I did the prayers, I did the meditation, I read the books, did everything they said there, I even went to meetings, which actually would be a masculine part of it, because that's something that you have to do. It's like people in church having to go to church. You know what I mean? They do that.
Yeah.
That's the masculine part of it. That's their duty. So those were things I had to do. You know, but
Mm.
when they start talking about gluttony, you know, and things of that nature, and laziness and stuff, those are things that are really hard, that are really stuck into your
Mm.
freaking psyche. You know what I mean?
Mm. Mm.
And they're really in there tight. So in order to do those things, you have to freaking take actions, and that's
Yeah.
where the rubber hits the road, basically.
Mhm. Mhm.
It's it's kind of a give and take on both masculine and the feminine when it comes to the process, because you can't do one without the other. You know what I mean?
Mm.
These are mostly all feminine from what I've seen, though. There's a lot of feminine in it, because it has to do mostly with love, in my
Okay.
opinion.
Right. Yes.
You know,
So
like,
you mentioned the prayers earlier. Is
mhm.
that the prayer of St. Francis of Assisi that
Yes.
you're mentioning? Shall I
Um,
read it? Shall we discuss it a little bit?
yeah. Now, before you do that, though, let me also say that the prayer of Saint Francis is actually an anonymous text. It's,
Yes.
even though it's called the prayer of Saint Francis, it's also called the peace prayer. Uh, it's also the simple prayer for peace.
Mm-hmm.
And it's also got a few names, um, but usually it's known as the Christian prayer for peace. Now, a lot of people associate it with Saint Francis of Assisi, but none of it's not in any of his writings, and the prayer uh, doesn't really go all the way back to Saint Francis of Assisi. It actually starts in 1912, and it was in France. It started out in a small magazine called The Little Bell, and published by a Catholic organization in Paris named the League of the Holy Mass. So, before you read this, I want everybody to understand this wasn't actually written by Saint Francis of Assisi. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And the author was actually anonymous. So, but they
Mm-hmm.
do think that it was a guy by the name of Esther Bocoro or something like that, some weird French name. So after,
Okay.
so after saying all that, go ahead.
All right. So the peace prayer then. Lord, make me an instrument of your peace. Where there is hatred, let me bring love. Where there is offense, let me bring pardon. Where there is discord, let me bring union. Where there is error, let me bring truth. Where there is doubt, let me bring faith. Reg, wrap me. Where there is despair, let me bring hope. Where there is darkness, let me bring your light. Where there is sadness, let me bring joy. O Lord, grant that I may not so much seek to be consoled as to console, to be understood as to understand, to be loved as to love. For it is in giving that one receives, it is in self-forgetting that one finds, it is in forgiving that one is forgiven. It is in dying that one awakens to eternal life.
All right,
Must be one of the prettiest poems ever.
that was great. Now, like right here is where the rubber hits the road. This is where you go from being one person into another one. That's the change. That's the golden nuggets. You know what I'm saying? This can change anybody's life. You don't have to have any mystical happenings that happens in your life. I deal with a lot of people on this stream that talk about seeing ghosts, seeing spirits. People that talk about, things that are mystical, you know what I mean? But you don't have to have all of that to have a spiritual life. You know what I mean? And this right here can do that for you. Now, when you look at these, this is the duality of it all, okay? The opposite of love is hatred. Where there's offense, there's pardon, discord, union, error, truth, doubt, faith, despair, hope, darkness, light, sadness, joy. It's all there. That's the duality, okay? And what I have to do is I have to be able to recognize when I'm having a bad day. I have to stop myself, say it's time to start my day over. Recognize what's going on. Is it hatred? If it's hatred, I have to stop feeling hatred and start feeling love.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
If there's an offense going on, I have to give pardon. Okay.
Yes.
If there's discord, I have to freaking feel. There has to be union. You know what I mean? Things of that nature. So all of a sudden, I'm looking at what's going on, and I'm freaking saying, okay, I have to go from this to this. There's a change going on, and I'm recognizing it. You know what I mean? So that's something that is very important, and it's a powerful tool. And even though this is written by an anonymous person, an anonymous strange French person in 1912, supposedly. Whoever he was, he had a lot of wisdom, because I've done research on this, and this goes back into some pretty skilled spiritual teachers of earlier times. So, would you mind reading the Golden Sayings of Blessings by Gauls of Assisi?
See, it's right. Okay, hold up. Where are you, Giles?
He's right underneath.
Yes, no, right underneath. I've got the Golden Sayings of Blessed Giles of Assisi. Right. Blessed is he who loves and does not therefore desire to be loved. Blessed is he who fears and does not therefore desire to be feared. Blessed is he who serves and does not therefore desire to be served. Blessed is he who behaves well towards others and does not desire that others behave well towards him. And because these are great things, the foolish do not rise to them. Wow. That's...
And
wow.
If you notice up there, it says self-forgetting that one finds, okay? So in order for me to find a new life, I have to learn how to self-forget. A lot of people don't understand what self-forgetting is. I have to forget myself. I have to learn how to take myself out of the equation. Okay, and that's another aspect that's really hard to understand. All right. In other words, I get in the way. Nobody else gets in the way. I get in the way. Whenever something is going on and I'm upset and I'm frustrated, there's a good chance I'm the cause of the problem, because I'm the one getting upset. You know what I mean?
Okay, yeah.
You see what I mean? So I have to stop. I have to think. I have to say, okay, I'm gonna start my day over. Now, what's going
Mhm.
on here? And after I figure out what it is, then I have to tell myself, now look, Roger, you're the guy who's getting in the way. You need to get the hell out of the way. You're causing problems here. And once I do that, things seem to work itself out, and I'm doing great. You see what I mean? But as long as I keep staying in that situation and getting in the way, then everybody gets mad at me and I get mad at them, and then we're arguing and we're fighting.
Sure.
You see? So,
I'm loving the way that you're explaining this masculinity and femininity. You're talking about, but by talking about your process, what I'm hearing you saying is that you are seeking after virtue, which is the feminine skill, using the masculine skill of rationality and decision making. It's very profound. I've so often, when I've spoken to people about masculinity and femininity, we've spoken about masculinity as this and femininity as this. But you're showing this way of using both of them together to achieve some sort of unity and balance between the two, which
mm-hmm.
then gives you this happier life, this more satisfying and fulfilling life.
It's if used properly, these principles is a direct line to God, and everybody thinks that I'm crazy when I say that, but it's not. It's not crazy whatsoever. And like I said, it's you don't have to be a part of a religious denomination to practice this stuff. Okay, these are spiritual principles that's been around a long time. I mean, a real long time. So
Well, I see that here in that last sentence. And because these are great things, the foolish do not rise to them. I always feel that religion is what people who aren't really spiritual do. And when you shed religion, that's when you actually start. That's when you start understanding what God is in your life.
mm,
Religion is rules that people follow.
yeah,
But spirituality is living out the truth of it.
mm-hmm. Yep. It's so much. I mean, it really, really is an amazing thing. Now the the best way that I can say is because it is crazy to explain. Like um,
Mhm.
everything that I've learned when it comes to this isn't like research that I did, going on the internet finding this stuff out. Okay, like these are actual things that I had to apply into my life, and the only thing that I have to that I can stand behind and say that it does work is the fact that I'm still sober. And even then, I can't say that I have a guarantee that I'm going to stay sober
Sure.
because nobody can tell what
Sure.
tomorrow will bring. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
So um, that's the toughest part about it. You know what I mean? Is like that that's what this is. This isn't don't get me wrong. I've done research on this stuff when it comes to a lot of this stuff. I have done research into it. But what I've been talking to you about today is actually boots on the ground doing the deal. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
This is something that I know is real. It's true, and I know that it works. And I can't explain it because a lot of the stuff that's happened in my life and the changes that I've gone through happened without my knowledge. I don't even know how it happened. It was like something came in and distracted me from drugs and alcohol and made me curious about this over here. And I never had, I never was able to take my obsession away from drug and alcohol and focus it on something else before.
Mhm.
So something did that to me, and I have no explanation what that was.
How amazing.
Okay.
Isn't it amazing? It happened to me too. When
Yeah.
God decides that he wants you, he comes and he gets you. And it's like that story of Jonah and the whale. Like something happens, something comes and gets you and takes you to the place that God's decided it. And it is, it's like you don't have to do the work. You do have to do the work. You
Mm-hmm.
do have to every single day do the work. But you also don't. It's also as if you get carried along in this something. But like you say, you have to take stock of yourself every single day. And if you stop taking stock of yourself and if you stop being the one who offers the love and the reconciliation and the peace and the unity, if you stop doing that, it stops working.
Yeah. It's it's well, I mean, I should be doing a lot more than what I have been, being honest. Like I should be. I'm stubborn, you know what I mean? And even even that's strange. You know what I mean? Like I've been told that freaking like people who leave AA usually get drunk. You know what I mean? And I listened to that for about 8 years, and I actually believed it. And I made a personal choice to stop going to Alcoholics Anonymous,
Mm-hmm.
but the reasoning behind it wasn't it wasn't a negative motive. I don't have any problems with Alcoholics Anonymous. It saved my life. Okay,
Yeah.
and I made the decision out of choices that freaking I did. It was my own personal choice and things of that nature. And that's the best way I can put it without
Yeah.
being mean or anything like that, you know, because I don't want to criticize Alcoholics Anonymous at all. But I'll just say that I moved to a smaller town, and
Mm-hmm.
I recognized some things in myself that I needed to change. And this is a different process that happened, which I didn't realize what was going on with it at the time. Now, what people who are addicted to drugs and alcohol have a tendency of doing when they sober up is they get really, really happy. Okay, and life
Yeah.
rotates around freaking AA and NA and all these 12-step groups,
Right.
and they don't want to take responsibility for the things that are really important. Okay, they like to
Right.
stay stuck in the meetings and stuff,
Okay.
and not really take care of what needs to be going on at home. And
Mm-hmm.
that's kind of what I became. I became that person who all he
Right.
wanted to do was talk about God, go to meetings, and stuff like that. Well,
Mm-hmm.
I was living in Evansville. I was able to go to a Alcoholics Anonymous club, which was open all day long, and I could go in there and hang out and be friends with everybody, you know, and stuff like that whenever I
Right.
wanted to. But then I needed to be going outside of the halls, and I needed to be working on myself, you know what I mean? Taking
Mm-hmm.
care of
Mm-hmm.
myself, getting a job, things of that nature, and I wasn't
Okay.
wanting to do it. I moved to West Frankfort, where I'm at, which is a smaller town,
Mm-hmm.
and I didn't have the luxury of always going down and hanging out at the AA club, which was open all the time. You see what I mean? So
Yeah.
that meant I had to deal with my family. I had to deal with my friends. I actually had to freaking do things that were outside of AA that didn't pertain to God and doing all these other
Mm-hmm.
things. And that introduced me into a whole new level of sobering up. This is reality now. You know what I mean?
Wow.
So I was kind of taken away from that blanket of security and put into a place where I had to stand on my own 2 feet, and I had
Mm-hmm.
to freaking do it
Do
on,
it.
you know what I mean? And that's
Mm.
that's a
It's
completely
amazing.
different level. I mean, that's all it is. So, like, that's what I was trying to say. I could be doing this a whole lot better than what I've been taught to do it, basically. And
Roger, I don't know. Do you
did,
know that there's a 4% success rate of AA?
yeah, I know.
4% of AA people stay sober for more than 5 years.
And
So
they're being
you're pretty
nice.
special.
They're being nice. You
You're
know.
pretty amazing. Like you say, you're not doing really well, but I mean, you're doing better than 96% of people.
Well, I mean, you do know
So
what recovered is, don't you?
pretty good.
You
Recovery, what?
no, you know what recovered is. You know what a recovery, or you know what a recovered alcoholic and drug addict is. It's a dead.
No?
It's a dead drug addict and alcoholic. They've recovered when they're buried. That's
And you go to heaven. Sounds like you've recovered from life. Yeah, right. Wow.
so you're always
Wow.
in recovery until
So
you
you're
die.
always doing it.
So when you hear
That's
people
so incredible.
when you hear people calling themselves a recovering alcoholic, they could be 20, 30 years sober. You know what I mean?
It's amazing.
So
Amazing.
and you know, there's no guarantees on tomorrow. So that's that's kind of what it really comes down to. So you need to
Sure.
learn how to, you know, live your life for today. Tomorrow,
Yes.
how is it? Today's the present. Tomorrow,
Oh, right.
is, you know, how does that saying go?
So how does that go? Yesterday? I know that. Today's the present, and so that's why it's a gift.
Yeah,
What?
yeah. Tomorrow is no guarantee. Yesterday's happened. Today is the present, and that's why it's a gift. I think it's something like that.
Yeah, something like that, yeah. Yeah.
But there's a purpose for that, you know, and people don't know what that means unless they've had to live it, you know. You have to stay focused on what's going on today. Do the task at hand. Don't worry about what's happening 5 steps from now. Do what's in front of you. What the next right thing is. You know what I mean? Just do the next right thing, and your life will be fine. So.
Wow.
And we
You see, that for me is far more profound. That for me is far more profound than going to church or observing rituals or burning incense or whatever it is people do. It's like to have that strength of I don't know even where the strength comes from, but to have that strength to just keep on doing it now. Like grit your teeth and do the task. You know, when I used to play World of Warcraft, they used to have dailies. Do you, I don't know, in the games that you've played, you have these daily, like every single day you had to go in and do these little quests, like go and pick your 5 flowers or kill your 3 teddy bears or whatever it was. And then after however many times you did it, you'd get your 1 achievement point. And I was thinking of that earlier when you were saying people don't like repetition. One of the most important things I learned from gaming was how to do the same thing every day. Because it like taught me that I had to wash my dishes every day. I had to make my bed every day. I have to do these things, and you have to. And if you stop, everything just goes away. All the progress that you've made goes away, boom, in one day. And you could have been doing it for 10 years or 15 years or 30 years, and you spend one day not doing it. You've like blotched your copybook.
Yep. That shows you how important all that repetition is. If you keep it in mind that you're doing this stuff so that you can feel good at that time, then you'll be all right. But if you think that freaking the stuff you're doing is ensuring freaking that you have a better day a week or a year from now, then you're going to be sadly mistaken.
Yeah.
You see what I mean?
Yeah.
Because eventually that's all going to vanish if you stop doing what you're doing on a regular basis. You know what I mean? So.
Yeah, indeed.
So, It's
Well, we have one more prayer, I think. Do we have one more prayer to talk about? Oh, we've got two. We've got the the
now
golden
the golden sequence.
golden sequence. Yes.
This is a strange one. Now the golden sequence. There really isn't a good way of reading this off. To be honest with you, it's something that goes back, and it like the golden sayings of blessed Gaius of Assisi, whatever. Um,
Mm-hmm.
his stuff comes from this. It's called the golden sequence, and this is
Right.
what a lot of the Catholics believe in, and it was used in the early churches. So it's not really a prayer, but it's just like
Okay.
a sequence. Um,
Oh, right.
so if you want,
Sequence of thinking. All right. Let me read it.
okay.
Um.
It's kind of confusing too when you read it, so just kind of read it
Okay.
out and hopefully it sounds good.
Okay. Let's give it a go.
Okay.
All right. So, come, Holy Spirit, and send out from heaven the ray of your light. Come, Father of the poor. Come, Giver of gifts. Come, Light of hearts. Greatest Comforter, sweet Guest of the soul, sweet consolation. In labor, rest. In heat, temperateness. In tears, solace. O most blessed light, fill the innermost heart of your faithful. Without the nod of your head, there is nothing in man, nothing that is harmless. Cleanse what is unclean, water what is parched, heal what is wounded, bend what is inflexible, warm what is chilled, correct what has gone astray. Give to your faithful who trust in you the sevenfold gift. Give virtue's reward. Give salvation's aim. Give joy eternal.
Yeah.
Wow. It's a powerful prayer.
Mm-hmm. It is that's basically where all of this stems from. Whoever wrote the St. Francis prayer was a genius, is all I've got to say. All right, because this is where he pulled most of his material from. I mean, and they don't know who he is, but like I said, he was a genius. It doesn't matter that he wrote that in the early 1900s or back when Francis Assisi was alive. He was a genius. He knew what he was doing. So
Yes.
now
Yes.
on the seven deadly sins, do you want to cover that, or do you want to hold off and do it later?
7 deadly sins. Well, I think that we've been going for about an hour now, so maybe we should take a break and then come back next week and look at this again. I don't know. Would you like to carry on going now?
Well, it's
How do you feel?
it's really short. I can just kind of go over what they are and everything.
Okay.
I think
Okay.
I think after that, if you want to, you can read that Ecclesiastics for me. I think that would be cool.
All right. That's a good one. Okay. Do the 7 deadly sins for us then.
Okay. So first, before I get into the 7 deadly sins, I'm going to do a short explanation. Roman writers such as Horace extolled virtues, and they listed and warned against vices. The first epistle of Horace says that to flee vice is the beginning of virtue, and to have gotten rid of folly is the beginning of wisdom. So that's where these 7 deadly sins came from. Okay, now
Mhm.
Quintus Horatius Flaccus is what he, I guess his birth name was, but he's commonly known as Horace. And he was a leading Roman lyric poet during the time of Augustus, who was also known as Octavian. And the epistles, or the letters of Horace, were published in 2 books in 20 BC and 14 BC, respectively. And this is where the list of the 7 deadly sins stem from. There's more people that were involved with it throughout history, but this is where it originally stems from. If
Right.
anybody, okay, so with that being said, I'll make a list of, or I'll list out the 7 deadly sins and their opposites, because, like I said, 2 opposites can't occupy the same space. So you have to recognize what the deadly sin is and replace it with the positive, out with the negative, in with the positive. Okay, so here it goes. Lust is the first deadly sin, and the opposite of it is aversion and apathy. Okay, gluttony is the second deadly sin, and its opposite is moderation and abstinence. Now, the third deadly sin is greed, and the opposite of that is generosity and indifference. The fourth one is sloth, and the opposite of sloth is initiative and diligence. Now, then you have the fifth one, which comes to wrath, and the opposite of wrath is happiness and patience. Okay, and I know it sounds weird hearing patience with wrath, but believe it or not, it actually is an opposite of it. So now we come to the sixth deadly sin, and that's envy. And the opposite of envy is generosity. And the last and final one, which is pride, comes humility. Now, that's a big one. That's the one you really have to be careful for, because before pride, or before death, comes pride. You know what I mean? So, like, pride will kill you. Just so you know, pride will kill you. So, and a lot of people like to say pride is a good thing. You're proud of this, proud. No, it's not. There's no such thing as good pride whatsoever. I mean, it really is horrible. Pride leads to anger and resentment. You know, your pride will get you in trouble. It'll make you angry, and anger will frickin' turn into resentment. So you don't want resentments. That's where frickin' that's where you'll end up killing yourself. So, and resentments will kill you. I mean, resentments and pride. So,
Yep. Yep, indeed.
Okay.
It's amazing. It's once again, listening to you, I see that it's once again a choice. Like you say, I'm restarting my day. It's like, oh wow, I'm being really greedy. I need to stop this, and I need to be rather generous instead. It's a mind game, isn't it?
Yeah, it really is. Well, people will raise you to freaking believe that you have to do mind over emotion. Okay.
Yeah.
But nobody ever wants you to freaking think on emotional levels. Okay. Like, use your mind to recognize your emotions. So you run around most of the time in your life just thinking, and you stuff down your emotions until you get to the point where you don't even know they're there. Okay, when somebody asks you how you're doing and you say you're fine, you're telling them you're fucked up, insecure, neurotic, and, and emotional. That's what you're telling them. And that's true. It really is, because nobody's fine. That's not even emotion. Okay.
No.
If you're if you're happy, you need to look happy. You know, how are you telling everybody that you're okay and you're happy when you got a frown on your face and you're upset? You know, that means you can't recognize your emotions and what's going on at the moment.
Mm.
So
Mm.
that's what this is all about. Like, it's
Mhm.
recognizing, learning how to think on emotional levels.
Yes.
So,
Yes. And then do something about that.
right.
Yeah.
And that's
Yeah.
exactly what it is.
Mm. I
So,
find it very helpful to have this list. I know the list of the seven deadly sins. I've come across it often in my life. I haven't ever before, until today, come across the opposites of it. I've always had like, don't do this, but not do this instead. This
mm-hmm.
is supremely helpful to
Yeah.
have the actual antidote, if you
Mm-hmm.
like.
It's been handed to you. It's been there all your life. It's just
It's been there all my life.
nobody has ever told you. It's and I'll go back to what I said before. This has, let me first clarify this. This has nothing to do with the Catholic Church. It has nothing to do with any Christian church whatsoever. It has nothing to do with Buddhism, Hinduism. Now, these are spiritual principles that are in every single religion. And every person on the face of this planet who's been involved in religion has been taught this. They just haven't
Right.
been told about it. They don't know
Yeah.
that these are the solutions.
Yes.
But
Fascinating. So
it,
good.
it's amazing. And you can find them everywhere.
Yeah, I've been thinking that. I thought yesterday, I don't know when it was, I think so in the last couple of days, I've been thinking there's one template for the human mind. And it doesn't really matter what culture you're brought up in or what religion you're brought up in. You're still made human. You have this brain that operates like brains operate.
Mm-hmm.
And so in so many of these religions, the things that changes are the words, but the deep principles, if you go beyond the words, if you go right into what the words really mean, it's the same every time. It's the same thing. Be nice to each other. Don't kill each other. Be
Mm-hmm.
generous. Be kind. It's not rocket science. It's just
Yep.
being a good person.
You want to read Ecclesiastic?
Ecclesiastes. Yeah, sure. This is
Ecclesiastes.
beautiful. All right. So Ecclesiastes 3 1 to 8. To everything there is a season and a time to every purpose under heaven, a time to be born and a time to die, a time to plant and a time to pluck up that which is planted, a time to kill and a time to heal, a time to break down and a time to build up, a time to weep and a time to laugh, a time to mourn and a time to dance, a time to cast away stones and a time to gather stones together, a time to embrace and a time to refrain from embracing, a time to get and a time to lose, a time to keep and a time to cast away, a time to rend and a time to sow, time to keep silence and a time to speak, time to love and a time to hate, a time of war and a time of peace.
It's pretty good.
Yeah, pretty cool. And neither of those are put above the other. It reminds me of what you were saying about Zoroastrianism and
Mm-hmm.
how good and evil, neither one is more important than the other. They just both are.
Mm-hmm. Now, in the Christian belief in Judaism, even the Jewish belief, they believe in God's will, that God controls both the good and the evil, and it's God's will. So there is a shift there, when it comes
Yes,
to that. So,
yes.
but I mean, the message is basically the same. You know what I mean? Like when you look at right there what you just read, there's a season, um, there's a time and a place. You know what I mean? This too will pass. Like I said,
This too will pass.
it doesn't matter if it's a good time or a bad time. This too will
Yeah.
pass. So.
Yeah. And then it'll come again. Goes round and round as the seasons do.
Mm-hmm. I think John left a message for you on the chat.
Oh, he did. What did he say?
I can't read it. It looks like his avatar, but I'm not quite sure. He's probably telling us to get off the stream. He said, "We've had enough of you. Get out of here."
Hey, you done talking, guys?
Oh, okay. There it is. Message removed. It was probably a spammer. That's my.
Oh.
Yeah. It says message retracted. Guardian jackpot. It was retracted. The stream.
Okay.
The stream was paused, I guess. So.
Oh, I see.
It's back on now.
Okay. It's back on.
Yeah. I ended up putting it down, so. Well, I guess that's it. We went through all the talking points, didn't we?
What a fascinating conversation. That was so interesting and so good. Thank you so much. Thank you for all your insight. Thank you for being here today. And thank you for doing all the streaming and all the hard work. It was just a really, really pleasant discussion. And we will be back again this time next week. Roger?
Okay. Sounds good.
Okay. So thanks everybody for joining us and for listening. Thank you, Roger, for being here. And until next time, goodbye.